Ladies and gentlemen, Team Fortress 2 came out 14 years ago. 14. And yet it's never had a higher player base. If you think this is completely preposterous and the opposite of what should be happening, right? Games have never had better graphics. They've never had better engagement. They've never had more money spent on developing them. Then why are so many AAA games getting trounced by Team Fortress 2? We're going to look at what Lazypurple has to say, and then I'm going to share why I think this game has stood the test of time. Let's get into it.
Team Fortress 2. Where do I begin? This game means so much to so many people. It actually makes me a little emotional. But what makes it such a timeless game?
I mean, you have to think, Lazy also has an even more sort of incredible perspective, because not only has Team Fortress 2 been probably the defining game of his life so far, it's also his career. He has made a career on YouTube and Twitch creating Team Fortress 2 content. So it's literally basically made his put food on his family, as George Bush used to say. But it's true. And yeah, you're definitely going to get emotional at this game that, frankly, by all accounts, should have faded into obscurity. And yet it's still so popular that Lazypurple can grow to 1 million subs and still have hundreds of thousands, even millions of views for his videos. I did not know 1010 was its release date.
That's right. TF2 came out 10 years ago on October 10th, 2007. That's almost half of my life.
That's pretty bananas. So he must have been 20 in 2007. So yeah, so he's probably 21, 22. And so yeah, so he must be 25 to 27 now. Oh, man. Well, that's why his content's been getting better.
But how has TF2 lasted so long? Inspired to find out, I hopped into a casual game.
Well, there's his first mistake. This was filmed, I think, in 2017. Yeah, 2017. So this video itself is 5 years old. And the bot problem had probably not yet emerged.
Now, I hadn't played in a long time, so I wasn't sure what to expect. With the game being 10 years old, you'd think that the only people still playing it would be seasoned, die-hard fans, masters of the game, pushing the limits of the game's design. But what I saw instead warmed my heart.
Complete anarchy. Right? No one taking this even remotely seriously. And maybe that's the thing, is the nostalgia factor for TF2. Maybe that's a contributor. Right? If you guys, and I know my audience is largely 18 to 24-year-olds, and you guys have to understand that old internet wasn't like this, right? There was a time when getting online involved a significant amount of startup costs. You had to purchase a modem, you had to purchase a computer, and the returns were very small, right? You could access like baseball scores, you could email somebody there, but there wasn't even a lot of options for transactions, right? You couldn't Amazon.com, right? You could have maybe bought a book. I mean, I remember the first time my parents made a purchase online, and they were so nervous that when there was a brief refresh of the browser, my dad stood up and shouted, "That's it! That's them stealing our credit card info! They just stole it!" And we were just like, "What are you talking about, man?" But the early internet, right? It was almost an advantage, right? The boomers hadn't shown up yet. The self-righteous assholes who just come for a debate hadn't shown up yet. It was a land for goofy nerds, right? Yes, there were some goofy nerds who got fixated on optimizing their favorite game, but even in 2007, the internet just didn't have quite the same character. It was young people live vlogging. things were a little less consolidated and corporatized as they are now. The internet wasn't defined as a social media landscape. It was defined as a place of, it was like the main street, right? You could walk down and pass a website about your favorite game, about the lore of your favorite books. There might be a website and forum dedicated to guitars and self-produced music. And you could go into each one of them, right? And you could experience that thing that you loved, right? And the things that were horrible, yeah, they were around, but they weren't accessible. They were hard to find.
First of all, we have 4 spies.
Yes!
As always.
Because there was no algorithms pushing content on you. So it's like if you wanted a guitar forum, then you just went to the guitar forum. You know, there was no, well, people who like guitar forums also love extreme political beliefs. So let's put some extreme political beliefs in front of this person who never asked for it.
This devilish Gibbison badge spy is totally immersed in his role as a handsome, roguish master of disguise.
Well, off to visit your mother.
Meanwhile, this guy is doing the spy crap. This joke is from 2008, and this guy is still keeping it alive. But wait, no. What's that I hear? Yep, that's the conga. This guy is trying to start a conga line in 2017 for what is probably the 100th time. And you know what? This guy's loving it.
Magnificent.
You see, I realized something. That very next round, almost the entire team was doing the Kazatsky kick. Except this guy's still trying to do the conga. Anyway, it was at this moment that I realized we were all just a bunch of people sitting at our computers sharing a brief yet silly moment together. And this is the soul of TF2.
Right. And you know, this is the other thing you have to realize is that some things were just silly for the sake of being silly, right? It wasn't special access. It wasn't you had to pay to get these special emotes. They just gave them to you so you could connect with other people in slightly better ways.
It's a world of its own. The character development, the inside jokes, the hats, the art style, it all helps to create an entirely unique universe that people want to be a part of.
And that they can, right? The barrier to entry is just playing the game more, right? It's having fun. The more fun you have, the more stuff you can access. In contrast to a lot of games now, the barrier is instead cost. Right? You pay your ticket to enter, but then if you want more silly stuff, more goofy uniforms, more fun skins, you gotta pay. You gotta get mom's credit card. You gotta get some Roblox or whatever. And it's just a really sad barrier to entry because you make it so that passion isn't the thing that defines it, right? Because passion is infectious, whereas money isn't, right? If you're rich, you're just rich. You don't make the people around you richer unless you're a fundamentally decent person, right? Or easily scammed, I should say. But passion is infectious, right? Someone else's love of TF2 is going to spread to you. And you see that when people play the game and have lots of goofy hats and dance around and do fun stuff. I mean, look, I'm 35. I started playing TF2 a year ago for the first time in my life, right? Pretty absurd, but it's the passion that pulls you into it.
Ah! Oh, merde.
You know what got me into TF2?
Imbecile!
It wasn't someone telling me how great rocket jumping is or how satisfying it feels to land a backstab.
Yes!
Nope, it wasn't any of that. It was the videos where we got to meet the team.
I am heavy weapons guy,
Godspeed, you magnificent bastard.
and this
Yes,
is my weapon.
I am having a heart attack.
I immediately fell in love with the characters that Valve had created. I wanted to play as them. But did you know that these characters almost never existed?
Whoa, history lesson.
Interestingly enough, Valve had initially planned on releasing TF2 with a more realistic art style. Let me tell you something. This does not last 10 years. Now this This lasts 10 years, and then some. But TF2 has more going for it than just its humor. See, funny animations and inside jokes can only carry a game so far. What keeps players around is the solid gameplay. I'll be honest with you, I've really struggled to figure out what makes TF2 such a great game. Is it the shooting? Is it the movement? But that's when it struck me. What?
Guys,
It's both. It became a
So, okay, this is the thing you have to understand as a principle, is that by 2007, FPS shooters, especially team-based FPS shooters, had actually matured a lot. And they had started right with things like Quake and to a lesser extent some of the Dooms, right? There had been a lot of iterations in the early 2000s of these sort of team-based shooters. And so what you had is what's called second mover advantage, right? First mover advantage is the term for being first to market with a product. And the advantages are obvious. You're selling something no one else has. Think about the first iPhone. But the second mover advantage is all the advantages that are conferred upon you by having someone else make all the mistakes first. And what do I mean by that? Well, think about it. If you're Samsung and you want to make a competing smartphone to the iPhone, you just buy an iPhone and you reverse engineer as much of it as you can. And then you go, okay, we know how to build our own iPhone. Now let's just make it better and ask people what their 10 biggest issues with the iPhone are and then fix them all, right? It's so much easier than literally learning how to create a micro camera, a microphone, store photos and play music, right? It's very complex to do that sort of thing. And it's very easy to do reverse engineering. And so what you have as a second mover is the chance to iteratively improve on all the things that people don't like about the first mover's product. And Team Fortress 2, right, being that there were hundreds of team co-op multiplayer games that had been out, Team Fortress 2 was able to understand everything that made people hate other games and fix all the issues. It maybe is just the peak of the art form, right? And by the time you got into, the 2010s, right, you start to see things like the mature Call of Duty franchises. That's another example of a game that, during peak Call of Duty era, 2010s, that it was beloved, right? The old meme about Call of Duty lobbies. But they were so popular because they were they developed at the end of the life cycle, the end of the art form, right? The era of the battle royale, of the massive multiplayer, they hadn't come around yet. So this was what it was. It was this sort of particular game, round-based team warfare, it just peaked.
Apparent to me that TF2 was carefully designed so that the guns and the movement worked together to form some of the best combat ever crafted. So, let's talk about the first point. The guns! The guns. First of all, most weapons in TF2 do a lot of damage per shot.
1 shot. 2 shots. 2 shots. 2 murder. The pyro.
Whoa, let's calm down. Now, if you look at some of the most used primary weapons for each class, you'll see that 7 out of 9 of them are single fire rather than automatic. Even Pyro has a single fire flamethrower now.
Hey!
Single fire weapons feel great to use. When you shoot these
Unless you can't aim like me.
guns, it's like bang,
That's what I'm talking about.
When you shoot these guns, it feels like ooh, like ooh, like ooh, like ooh.
Okay, we get it, boss.
Okay, you get my
I love the lens flare.
Thanks to the incredible sound design and heavy damage of these weapons, I can literally hit a scout with a pipe grenade, die horribly, and still have had fun because of how great it feels to land a direct hit. There's something about the deep of the gun and the sharp of the hit, along with seeing that I did a whopping 100 damage, that together makes me feel like, nice, I hit him. Next time, I'll hit him twice. Compare this to shooting Sniper's SMG. Scout is jumping around, you're getting a couple of little shots in, and you inevitably die.
Hey, listen, I'm an automatic weapon guy. I'm more of a to whom it may concern kind of player. You know me, but it is pretty satisfying in the same way to play with the heavy revved gun, to just really just hear da-da-da-da-da-ding, right here, just shot after shot connect. That's just a feel good moment.
Frustrating as heck.
Stupid, bloody, spastic little gremlin. Sniper! Yeah, get a real gun. Okay. Thanks, mate. Yes!
The second reason shooting is so fun is that the character models in TF2 are so thick.
Echoes of thick. I don't want to know how you do this. I think this may be like maybe some Japanese characters and some ACSI to get this crazy closed caption thick.
Just look at that absence of curves. That beautiful rectangular figure. This is a real man's hitbox.
He's not wrong.
Hey! You'll never hit me!
Rectangular figure.
Easy.
The guns feel powerful, and the hitboxes are rock solid. Believe it or not, that makes it fun to shoot stuff, which is pretty important in a first-person shooter.
Like we said, iterations, man. You've seen the janky hitbox problems. You've seen the, terrible, like, unresponsive weapons.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you. Now let's talk about the...
And TF2 was able to fix them all. Especially someone like Valve, who made a lot of high-level games and had already had a track record of well-designed gameplay.
Second point. The movement.
What?
You put a new player into the game and you tell them, look kid, you move with WASD, alright? That's all they pay me to tell you. Stupid job just cause I'm 2 inches tall.
Yeah.
And they go on to use their movement exclusively as a way to get from one place to another.
Thanks, mate. Yes.
Then they die one too many times and think, maybe I could use my movement to dodge things. Oh yeah, you can. How wide do you strafe? Left, right, oh geez! Do you strafe in one direction more than the other one? Man, I didn't expect that. How do you incorporate diagonal movement? It's a 3D game, man, you gotta think about that. You can even do a
3D games only work with Scout, right? 3D, you gotta travel in the third dimension. Front to back, left to right, that's 2 dimensions.
figure eight. To get a figure eight out of WASD movement, you have to press AWDSD, WASA, WDSD, WASA, WDSA,
Okay, we know how this works. They didn't invent WASD gameplay, but I appreciate his love of it.
It's hard to keep doing it. There's so...
But it's true. It's rare that a game has that as a feature, right? In real life, walking in a figure eight isn't actually going to help you, stop the enemy from shooting you. A better bet would be just gentle, continuous movement.
So much you can do with WASD.
But Lazypurple, other games have WASD controls. What's so special about TF2?
He even sounds like me.
Great question. There are 2 reasons that movement is so satisfying in TF2. Reason 1, the weapons in TF2 are very hit or miss. You either get hit by a pipe grenade, or you don't.
Well, also true of every weapon. And it's not really true of things like the rocket in, Heavy's rocket. It's also not true of the pipe grenade, right? The pipe grenades can have indirect hits, indirect damage. Pyro's flamethrower is another example, right? You can hit, miss, and then have the enemy die.
Hello again. Screaming eagles.
I think that's actually one of the best parts, where like the different weapon systems help even the playing field with super sweaties, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm not going to beat Lazypurple. He's going to be way better than me, but the skill gap is not going to be my 100 hours to his 6,000 hours. Like he's not going to have, this 60 times, he's not going to get 60 kills to my 1, right? And that's part of, I think, the good game design is that, again, because it wants to be accessible, right? It wants to be accessible, so it wants to close the skill gap between the sweaties and the normies. Instead, when you have games like battle royales of various sorts, right? Battle royales, unfortunately, lean extremely towards favoring elite players because, and this is sort of the game financials, is these games are their sustained revenue sources, right? If you're, let's say you're Apex Legends, you understand that you have probably 1 to 4% of your players that make 98% of your game's income. That is because these are people that spend hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars on cosmetics. You laugh, it's true. Famously, mobile game Raid Shadow Legends, some of their biggest whales spend millions of dollars on Raid Shadow Legends gear. Millions. I'm hoping that there's some sort of Saudi prince or a brilliant hacker, because it just sort of depresses me to think that there's someone who has access to $1 million and is like, mobile gaming. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that when your revenue is 98% top 4% of players, then your other 96% of your player base, they are basically cannon fodder. They basically exist to enhance the experience of the elite level players. And that means that the experience of those people who purchase the game, play, and then stop is not that important to the designers. So the idea, in fact, you want those ultra skilled players, you want to continually validate their need for to feel good. You want them to be able to butcher normies wholesale, right? Because it validates all the money that they've spent, right? You want them to spend money and feel like they get value, even if it's just for cosmetic skins, right? They still feel like they get value because they've spent money, they're now good, they play the game obsessively, right? All of those things are sort of muddled together in their minds, and then they're able to murder wholesale casuals. And TF2 is the opposite, right? It made it accessible. You could be a casual and have fun. The truth is, games like Tarkov, Apex, Valorant, it's not fun to be a casual in those games.
You're either engulfed in the flames of a flare.
Even CSGO, playing against elite players in CSGO is horrible. It's awful. It's inaccessible.
Gun, or you're not.
And those are the biggest games. If you look at Twitch, those are the biggest games in the world right now.
I'm a freaking blur here.
You can hit a fat meat shot or miss entirely. Because so many weapons in TF2 are hit or miss, dodging is heavily rewarded, which leads into reason 2. Movement matters in most interactions, which you can think of as mamimi, which you can remember with, damn it, mamimi gun, why are you the only thing that doesn't fit into my argument?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry! Whew, that was a close one.
Hello again.
Against soldiers, you can sometimes entirely avoid splash damage by moving diagonally instead of horizontally.
See?
Against pyros, you can avoid dying horribly by moving around the map in ways that put you outside of their effective range.
If you know what's good for you, you will run.
Against demo men, you can throw off their prediction by jumping and then stopping your momentum.
Nope. I'm drunk.
Uh-oh. But not all movement is defensive.
What?
Spies need to know all the variations of trick stabs. Soldiers need to know all the nuances of rocket jumping.
Ha!
Scouts have to constantly take advantage of the terrain around them without even looking at it. There's so much you have to know! And yet...
Yeah, and this is the other thing, right? TF2 still has a high skill ceiling. It's just that the growth trajectory, right, in terms of dominance, you play your game, you have terrible to mediocre games, and then at some point you cross the threshold where you are significantly better than 50% or more of the players. And then your effectiveness, right, relative to everyone else, your ability to get 5, 6, 7, 50 kill matches suddenly starts to increase exponentially. So your abilities, right, the difference that extra 10% of skill makes does this, right? Those top 10% players get 80% of the kills on a map. In contrast to with something like TF2, where yes, your skill growth pays dividends. Almost, again, you could play for decades and still experience new ways to grow in the different classes. But it's not exponential, right? You could get 2 or 3 or 4 more kills, right? You'll be more effective, but it won't look like this. It won't be parabolic.
It's all built on just WASD and spacebar. Alright, I'm about to unravel the main point of the video, so if you've made it this far, try to keep up. TF2's design philosophy is centered around fair movement and risky weapons. The trend towards hit or miss weapons is no mistake. In the pre-launch trailer for TF2, you can actually see that Scout was equipped with an automatic weapon, which was then replaced with the now iconic scattergun. 2 of the classes that launched with automatic primary weapons have since received game-changing single-fire side grades. On the flip side, no class that launched with a single-fire primary weapon has ever received a truly automatic side grade.
Interesting.
Single-fire weapons heavily punish you for missing. So how does TF2, a game often described as the gateway to PC gaming, avoid frustrating new players who might not be skilled enough to properly use these weapons? By making the movement feel fair. TF2's movement is designed to be
This is exactly what I talked about, right? New players, the game is designed for accessibility for new players, something that no modern games do.
intuitive, and I'm not just making this up. The TF2 team made this intent clear in the recent Jungle Inferno update,
Recent.
where they reworked the atomizer and base jumper due to them causing unpredictable movement. At a foundational level, it really helps that the characters in TF2 take time to switch directions, which gives them a natural feeling of weight. But why is this so important?
So painful.
I'll tell you. Because the movement is so fair, hit or miss weapons become rewarding instead of frustrating. And because so many weapons are hit or miss, every little movement counts and can be the difference between living or dying. When I die in TF2, I think, I could have hit that shot, or darn, I could have dodged that. No other game has ever so consistently made me feel like every death is my own.
Except as heavy against spies. I gotta say, there's some times where I'm like, I'm in the spawn, my team is very far ahead of me, and a spy just walks up behind me and stabs me.
Fault. The combination of fair
I hate to be someone who blames others for their flaws, but like, damn, heavy versus spy, it's kind of one-sided if you don't have the support.
movement and single-fire weapons creates highly interactive combat that rewards players for improving at the core actions of shooting and dodging.
Except for heavy.
Look, there'll never be a game just like TF2. If you look at the TF2 classes, you'll see that they're all conceptually very simple. We've got Fast Boy with Shotgun, Rocket Launcher Shotgun Dude, Grenade Man, Big Dude with Big Gun. But TF2 took these simple classes and fine-tunes their interactions to perfection. And because of this, Fast Boy with Shotgun, Grenade Man, all the classes take thousands of hours to master.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, it's masterful, and that's what makes it such a timeless game.
That's a fact. Shout out to Lazypurple, man. He always knows how to sum it up. Definitely want to check out his stuff if you want. But as you guys know, I think ultimately, I don't want to say games have gotten worse. In many facets and ways, they've gotten better. But it's so funny when people complain so much about accessibility and representation when the games are designed to be exclusionary to everyone, right? Doesn't matter if you include more, female characters or characters of different races and backgrounds. I mean, that's fine. I guess it's better, right? But it's a proxy for what people really feel, which I think is just that games aren't accessible as they should be, And you look at some games, right, that are like, you can either play Animal Crossing, where the game is utterly accessible, but there's almost no competitive aspect to it, or you can play CSGO or Elden Ring, where the games are very competitive, but they're totally inaccessible to regular people. And what you're stuck with is finding the balance. How do you find the balance in a game? And the answer is just like in a I don't want to say a just and fair society, but like a world with more fairness would ensure that the people who need a little bit of a hand, the new people, the inexperienced people, the ones who might not have a ton of PC gaming experience, they have a bunch of avenues to let them have fun, feel good, feel like they're growing. And the people who are ultra high skill, they still have opportunities to feel like they can still get better. But this gap, this delta between the top 5% of players and the bottom 5% of players, you've got to find ways to narrow it to make the games accessible to everyone. Instead, of course, we have games, and TF2 does an awesome job of this, right? I complain a lot about the other games. TF2 is so good at it, and it's one of the things that keeps me coming back to this game. Okay, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Definitely want to hit the subscribe button. I have a dream of hitting 100,000 subs, putting that silver plaque. Please help me out. Also, if you want access to exclusive content, especially some fun Q&A videos, you want to join the Patreon. Thanks to my patrons, Cole Foster, Command Unit Caffeinated, Jack Flavis, Chris, Dr. Shotcop, Porter World, Time, Brandon, Arbitrage, Tober, and Astro Hunter, and Z1 Joker. You guys make this possible. All right, that's all I had. I'll see you in the next one.